Hello, Cherries fans. Welcome to another match preview. And this time we'll be looking at our first midweek game of the season against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, of course, I'll have the usual guests and collaborators from Cherries Red Army and a Wolves opposition fan. And we'll be delving into the match and also looking at the reaction and fallout to our most recent match. Before we go any further, we'll just introduce our sponsor for the video.
This video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors, professional jet washing and cleaning services across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, including Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. Are you feeling it's time to get that driveway nice and shiny for when you come home? Or are you wanting to get that guttering tidied up and spotless again? They deliver this, plus much, much more. Please head into the description below where you'll find their details for their website, including the socials, Facebook and Instagram. You also need to find their before and after portfolio. You can also call them on 07503 998 088 for a free quotation. Don't wait till next week. Don't think you'll do it another day. Pick up the phone, give them a call, check them out.
Now, as you may have noticed, I am not Kirk Tovey, but unfortunately he has asked me to step in at the last second due to a family emergency. But we do wish him all the best and his family, and I'm sure he will be back on for the next video. Now, we've got to delve into the coming match and obviously look back to that 9-0 loss. Of course, it was a difficult evening. I was there. I hope you saw my reaction, but I know Scott Parker's got a lot of, cheering up to do. Those players will be on the floor. And sorry, what? He's been sacked. Oh boy.
Cheeky one, square and
And I am joined today by Aaron. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, John. Good to be back on again after a little break.
Yes, nice to see you again. We've got Steve back on as well after a little bit of a break. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. A lovely little ad lib there. I like that, John. That was very nice. But what I think you missed a trick there. You could have done it a la Back to the Future and Doc and done a great Scott.
Maybe next time, if there is a next time. And we've got our opposition preview. It's Dave from the Always Wolves Fan TV. How are you doing today, my good man?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me on. First of all, I just want to obviously send our best wishes to Kurt. I know he's had a family emergency and had to drop out, and we do send our best wishes to him and his family.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that,
Cheers, Dave.
And everyone else in the Cherries Red Army and Cherries fans also echo your sentiments there. So I suppose there is a rather big elephant in the room, so we might as well get that out of the way. Quick reactions, because we will. I'm talking about myself, Steve.
So I did eat a lot on holiday, but
Before we delve deeper into that later on in the show, as we will obviously want to be looking at Wolves for a bit in the first half, quick reactions, give it no more than 60 seconds, going around the room. Aaron, how are you after hearing the news this morning about Scott Parker's dismissal?
Yeah, got lots to say on it, but as you said, we'll delve on it later. Mixed feelings, to be honest with you. I think in my initial reaction was, a bit knee jerk, and thinking, it's always sad to see someone lose their job, someone who fulfilled his remit last season and clearly had a very difficult start to the season, but that was overruled quite significantly by his demeanor, his attitude, clearly his comments, his lack of belief in his squad publicly, and that clearly was unsustainable and not in alignment with the overall vision and direction of the football club. We'll come into later the ins and outs of what might have gone wrong, when it might have gone wrong, and what happened. But I guess time will tell. Time will tell indeed. I think the timing for me is a bit worrying. But that was not to say that you have to wait particularly. But as I said, we'll delve into that a bit later. What comes next is the key, really, for me, and that will decide everything.
Steve, your thoughts?
Am I surprised? No. After his public outbursts recently, it's obviously there's a fractious relationship there between Scott and the board. And Max said it in his statement. They're not pulling. They're not in alignment. Their ideas. So, you could see it coming. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd. After those comments more over sort of Sunday evening, I was sort of wondering, did that reduce the amount of time he had left in the job, or sort of the pressure on him? And turned out it really, really did. Dave, now you've obviously been, I don't know, I'd say fortunate, but you're doing very well with your current manager. You had Nuno Espirito Santo before that. I think there's been a decent amount of in sync between your board and managers, sort of looking from the outside.
No.
Really?
Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously, they're backing him now. He was playing with Nuno's squad last year, pretty much playing the back three. He wants to play a back four. Don't forget, Wolves haven't won in the Premier League in 11 games. So I do like Bruno with the type of football we're playing, but we're not scoring. We finished in the top 10 last year, and it was the first team to finish in the top 10 with the lowest amount of goals scored, and we only scored more goals than 3 relegated sides. So goal scoring has been a big issue, and we're doing a lot of business in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And we need a win. We need a big win. On Scott Parker, I'm kind of not surprised in one way. I don't think it's anything to do with the defeat, because anyone can get tanked by Liverpool at any particular time. From judging from the outside looking in, I think it's more to do with the fact that if you're turning around and saying this team is not good enough to compete in the Premier League, then you're not really, as a manager, installing much confidence into your players. And I don't think there's obviously something not right behind the scenes. He doesn't feel he's been backed. There's a bit of friction. So it's not helping the team, and they've pulled the plug. And from my point of view, it's, playing a team that's just lost 9-0 and lost their manager is probably the worst time we could possibly play it, to be fair.
Yeah, I suppose we were sort of on the other end of that with Liverpool losing to Man United and then deciding that they were going to turn it on when they came up against us. So, well, I suppose we can delve deeper into Parker later on in the show. But the important thing of this video is obviously to discuss the upcoming match. So, I mean, Ayrton, we've got Bournemouth 1 win in 4, and obviously on a pretty poor goal difference. We've got Wolves, who haven't won a game yet and are, only on 2 points after two draws from their opening matches. It's an interesting one. I think if Parker hadn't gone, I suppose Bournemouth fans would be looking at this as a good opportunity to sort of get their season back underway again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Wolves sit below us. I'm not quite sure how, because I watched their game against Spurs and they were pretty impressive, to be honest with you. I watched their game against Newcastle, and obviously big fan of Newcastle, big admirer of their football, but missing some of their players, I thought Wolves had a good opportunity to beat them, and but for a brilliant goal from St-Maximin in the last second, then they would have done. They don't concede many goals, so it's very difficult earlier this season to say it's a false position. But people saying, "Oh, we have to beat Wolves because they're below us." I don't think it's as simple as that. I think Wolves are a very good team. Traore hasn't even played, so I don't know if he's going to be unleashed tomorrow night, but that scares the hell out of me. I'm sure Dave might be able to give us a bit more info on who might be playing. And I saw Ruben Neves might be linked with Liverpool. I don't know how true that is, no idea. But but having said that, the dynamic has changed slightly. But regardless of who's taking charge tomorrow night, we need to try and get something on the board, even a point. People saying it's a must-win game. I mean, I just don't see that at this stage of the season. We just try and get a point on the board and try and stop the run of defeats, because Wolves I really don't. They're not a bad team at all. So it would be great to get something from the game leading into another huge game on Saturday. But Wolves, as I said, they might not score many, but they're defensively very, very sound, and it's going to be very difficult to score past them.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, how are you looking at this game coming up? Obviously, we're in a difficult situation now in one regard, but I think there's a lot of fans that will have sort of almost a weight lifted off them in one regard for this. But certainly the players, they've really got to pick themselves back up now after some very difficult games. How do you think they're going to react in this one, which is a much more, in comparison to the last three games, a much more achievable goal of getting points out of this one, particularly at home?
Well, I think it comes down to Gary O'Neill and the two guys that have come up from the under 23s to give them a hand in Tommy Elphick and Sean Cooper. They've got to pick this bunch of players up off the floor, because that's where they are currently. After a 9-0 smashing like they got, and quite frankly, one of the worst displays I've ever seen. It's not going to be an easy job, but I think I don't think we will beat Wolves. I think it's going to be a very, very tough ask in the current situation. But I do think we can make that performance 20, 30 times better. We have players that can compete in the Premier League. We've seen it at Villa already. And we just need to turn up and give a good account of ourselves. I think I'd snap your hand off for a draw right now. I mean, just to get that confidence up a little bit, because I've never lost 9-0 myself, but I can't. I've had some close encounters of those sorts of scores, and it's a horrible feeling, even whatever level you're playing at. So motivation has got to come from the guys that have come into that position now to take Parker's place, Gary O'Neill and the rest. It's going to be tough, but that's where it's got to start. You just got to get there, get the lads' tails up and get them playing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the task that Gary O'Neill and Sean Cooper and Tommy Elphick are going to have against Wolves. Dave, last match was a 1-1 draw against Newcastle. Now, as a Eddie Howe fan more than a Newcastle one, I was keeping an eye on this one, and it was certainly, bar a couple of interesting decisions. I think the disallowed goal, I think, was correctly disallowed, but there was certainly a possibility of a red card for a Shah tackle as well. And you played pretty well. I think, unfortunately, just one moment of absolute magic cost you the 3 points. But how do you feel you are doing this season? Obviously, you mentioned that you're looking to shift to more of a back four, or at least the manager wants you to. You've sold or put on loan initially Cody to Everton. It does seem that there's a decent amount of upheaval at the moment in the Wolves.
There is. I mean, Bruno Lage, when he was at Benfica, he worked a lot in, shall we say, with the youth levels. He got his chance at Benfica when they were 4th or 5th in their league, and he took them over and he won something like 17 out of 18 games, drawing 1, scoring 100 goals, playing with the back four, and they won the league. The following season, he left himself during the end of the season. He was out of work for a year. He came in after Nuno, and he hadn't really been able to bring in the players he wants. We stuck with the back three last year, and Wolves, as you know, we've played with a back three since Nuno came in. So it is a big change. It's gone all in on a back four, because you don't let Cody go out to loan on Everton, your club captain, who plays it in the middle of a back three if you think you might switch back to it. So he's all in on it. We bought in Collins from Burnley, he is quality for 20 million. And we've got Max Kilman, another young lad that was out towards the end of last season, which cost us a little bit. And they're very young, but they're very, very good on the ball. They're very good in the air. And they're very good on the floor as well, and they can bring the ball out. And then, we've gone up. They've looked good. The full backs, we had Aït-Nouri. He'd been dropped out the side the last couple. Semedo's come back fit, who played for Barcelona previously, and he played brilliant. You probably saw him play if you watched the game against Newcastle. He pretty much marked St. Maximin out the game. And then obviously we brought in Neves as well from Benfica, and you're looking at a middle of, it's a crazy midfield really for me. Moutinho, Neves and Nunes in middle. It's got to be one of the best midfields in the Premier League. They're so good. And then obviously our problem has been scoring goals. Up front, Jimenez has been out. He's not been the same player since the head injury. Then he got injured pre-season, but he will be back. for the game against Bournemouth. He's starting to come back. And interestingly enough, an interesting stat, Raul Jimenez has scored in every game he's played against Bournemouth. And he will start. Yeah, he will start tomorrow. No, that's an interesting stat. I thought would be quite useful. Yeah, he's played 4 Premier Leagues against Bournemouth and he's scored every time. So hopefully, from our point of view, that's a good omen. We can start getting some goals.
You never wish injury on a player, but you don't like when someone comes into a game in that kind of form against one particular club. I mean, we've got enough teams and players that score basically every time they play against us. Raheem Sterling is the one that certainly comes mostly to mind, who's got about, 250 in 7 games. So talking about Wolves, Aaron, obviously, things aren't perfect in terms of points for them at the moment, but that never tells the whole story. You've only got to look at Bournemouth to have a look at that. But what have you made of them so far this season?
From what I've seen, I've watched a couple of those games, and they are typical Wolves. They break quickly. They're very sound defensively, very hard to break down. They defend very well, even without Cody now. They throw themselves in front of the ball. They're very organised. Maybe just missing that clinicality, but obviously, typically for us, Jimenez is now probably back up to full speed, so that's a bonus for them. I don't know how much they'll rotate the wingers. Dave, I don't know if you think Traore will play tomorrow, if he's likely to stick with Neto and whoever on the other side is.
The way I look at it, he didn't bring Traore on against Newcastle, which was a massive mistake. Because we've been every match the last 2 years, we've been brilliant in the second half and rubbish in the first half. This year we seem to be great in the first half, and then we've been fading out of games. And Bruno's been we've got 5 substitutes. He made 2 with 12 minutes to go, and he brought on Podence and Wang, who missed a penalty in midweek, low on confidence, skewed the ball for Maximum to score that fantastic finish. And really, you should have brought Traore on, because when you're under the cosh, you want someone that can run with the ball or chase a long ball out, and that would have forced Newcastle to have left another player back, and probably we would have, I think, won the game. So it was I do worry about in-game management from Bruno. I think he will start with Neto and Guedes, and he will save Traore on the bench. We don't know what's going to happen with Traore on transfer deadline day. He won't sign a new contract.
I was going to say that.
He
might not be used, hopefully.
If he needs a club, we're looking for some players.
And is there any truth to the Ruben Neves rumour, or is that complete nonsense?
If we sell Ruben Neves now, there'll be a riot. Literally, we did think he was going at the end of last season. He kind of said his goodbyes. He'd emptied his house and everything, and then there was rumours of he was expected to go, and that was the same the year before. Ruben Neves got 2 years left on his contract. He's now club captain in replacement for Conor Cody. He's the captain. He was the understudy to Cody. He's now the captain. And it would take some humongous amount of money for Wolves to sell Ruben Neves right now. I can't see it. There's no way. I don't think Ruben necessarily wants to need. We don't need to sell him right now. He's still got 2 years of his contract left.
How old is he, Dave?
He's like 24, 25. I can't believe he's been playing for 5 years.
I always look at him. Yeah, I always look at him and think he's older than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's a difficult one, because if someone like Liverpool came in for him, would you begrudge him? He's obviously been a great player for you. But
I don't think we sell him.
Isn't it?
I really don't think we would sell him right now. I don't, unless it was like £100 million. They'd have to really fork out the money for us to sell him, because why would we sell our club captain, who's one of the first names on the team sheet, and weaken our team in the situation? That would be madness for me, without getting another replacement. I know we've signed Nunes, we've got Moutinho. Moutinho's 36, but I can't. I don't think Liverpool would. They're looking for someone because they've got. I think Liverpool, because they've got a few out midfield, and when they've come back, Neves is a guaranteed start at Wolves. The World Cup's in December. If he's with Wolves, he's guaranteed to be playing, and he'll be definitely in the World Cup squad, won't he? So I can't see it. And I'm hoping I'm right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I certainly, if I was a Wolves fan, I would be desperate for him to stay. But I think that after a long time at one club, there is, particularly after sort of the sort of sign off that he was kind of giving. I think he was maybe under the impression that Man United were probably going to come in for him, or certainly that was the rumours anyway. But I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens with that, because I think I agree with you. At this stage of the season, at this stage of the transfer market, I can't imagine them accepting any money to part with someone as important as Ruben Neves. But speaking of transfers, Steve, I think Bournemouth fans probably wouldn't mind having a relationship like Wolves do with an entire country. And if you're going to have the kind of relationship that Wolves had with a country, I think Portugal's a pretty darn good one to have one with, considering the talent that keeps popping out of that country. What do you think of that situation? I mean, it's one that probably has been talked about to death. But I mean, when you've got a relationship with an agent like Wolves do, what do you think about that and the situation that they've got themselves?
I actually think it makes a lot of sense, to be fair. I mean, the guy, I forget his name, the agent, but
George Mendes.
Mendes, that's it. Yes, he's getting these players moves to the Premier League, which is what they're looking at, or what they're after. And then you've got a good core of Portuguese players at one club, and that's going to build a nice little base for them. They're going to want to attract more into there. I think it's only a positive thing for them. To be fair, I think we all thought they were punching a little bit above their weight, Wolves, but actually I think it's a very shrewd move, and to get that solidarity in a group of players that are coming from abroad is a great idea. I'd love to have some of the talent that at AFC Bournemouth that you've got at Wolves currently, because it wasn't too long ago we were both Championship sides. So yeah, I mean, great idea. We just certainly not fishing from the same pool of players, so that's the problem. And will continue to be, I think, with our current, our current financial model. But for Wolves, it's a great idea. And I mean, some of the talent that, Neves, we've talked about, Moutinho is just class. He uses class.
I just pinch myself to think that he's playing in our midfield, man.
I remember you used to sign him in Champ Manager, and he was brilliant. Going back like 2000, and he's an absolute wonderful player. And you couple that with some of the other players they've got in there, like Traore. I mean, I think he was one. I mean, I've spoken about Traore before. I'd love to have a player like him at my club. And why we didn't go in for him years ago when he was at Middlesbrough. I thought he was prime and a great player that Eddie could have worked with. We didn't get him. Wolves did, to their credit, and he's just a game changer. I mean, going back to Ruben Neves, I think. Yeah, to lose another captain, another leader. I don't know what the guys are like there at Wolves, whether you're full of leaders in that team, but to lose one then lose another, I think it's that's a bit suicidal, to be fair. I don't know what you think of that, Dave.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Ruben, he's got Wolves tattoos on him and stuff like that. He's Wolves through and through. He literally loves the club. And when at the end of last season, the last match of the season, he had a tear in his eye. The fans chanted his name. We thought that was the last time we were going to see him, and we kind of accepted it. We put on there, we can't say after giving the service that he'd given that he deserves to be playing at a higher level in like European and Champions League and all that sort of jazz. We've kind of accepted it as long as they. We had the time to work with building a replacement but now letting him go with a day to go or on the transfer deadline day.
But I don't think it's beyond realms of possibility of you to get into Europe in the next sort of 2 or 3 seasons.
I think we'll finish top 6 personally. Once we click, we'll be off. Personally, I mean,
I think if your man Jimenez can stay fit, I think that's the key.
We're just about to spend £18 million on a new striker.
He's not playing tomorrow, is he?
No, that's Sacha Kalajic. He's 6'7". He's like the Austrian version of Peter Crouch, plays for Stuttgart. It's a slightly different type of striker, which is what we need. And he's apparently undergoing his medical today, and so he'll be signed. I think we're probably going to sign another defender as well before the deadline. and there'll be a couple that will possibly go out, but he won't be available for tomorrow night. So that's that. But he's tall. He is the Austrian Peter Crouch.
Very nicely done.
Okay then, Dave. So, having gone through a bit of squad details and how we're feeling, I suppose the big question is, what do you think the score will be?
Is that for me?
That is for you, Dave.
Right. So, I've been looking at the stats on this game, and the Cherries have never beaten Wolves in the Premier League. Drawing 1, losing 3, but there has been 15 meetings between all the sides in all the competitions, and both have been produced 6 wins apiece and 3 draws. I am a little bit concerned that as soon as you lost 9-0, I thought there's going to be a reaction, because any team that gets humiliated by that much, the players in the dressing room, they're going to be bouncing off, and they're going to, right, we need to show the fans, especially at the home game. So there's going to be a reaction. Then you lose you sack your manager. So it's kind of like, I don't think the best time to play. So it's either going to go one or two ways. I think Bournemouth are going to come out with a point to prove. I think they're going to battle for everything. They're going to have to. I think you've got a legend on the dugout, a Cherries legend. Is that correct? That's and they're going to fight for that. I think it'll be a tight game, but I do think that we'll win the game, and I do think we'll keep a clean sheet, and I think we'll win 2-0. That's what I've gone with.
2-0. Another game without a goal. Another game without a point. I certainly hope not. But to be fair, as long as it's not 9-0, I'm not going to be too angry, I don't think, after the most recent game. But anyway, thank you very much for your opinions and all your talk today, Dave. And best of luck to the rest of the season. Not for tomorrow, but for the rest of the season after that. Best of luck to you.
And don't forget, you can see Kurt's, because Kurt's come on our channel, Always Wolves Fan TV, and he sent over a video on his thoughts on that as well. I know he's not on the channel tonight because of the family emergency, but you can get Kurt's thought on that. And can I just say thanks for welcoming me on your channel. It's been a real pleasure, boys. And I do like Bournemouth, and I really do. I hope things turn around, but not tomorrow night. And you end up staying up because you're a proper club.
Cheers, Dave.
Thank you very much,
Dave.
for that, Dave.
All the best.
Cheers.
Take care,
Thank
boys.
you very much. Cheers, Dave. Right, so now I suppose it's time to move into the Bournemouth side of things. But before we do that, we are going to have our little interlude, as per usual, with a bit of Guess the Player. So we'll try that first. If you please. Yes, Kirk's not here, but I have done a little bit of research. We've had enough time just to pick out something to give us a bit of an interlude before we get into things that may not be so lighthearted over the next sort of half an hour. So as per usual, I'm going to give both of you a clue one at a time. Just let me know when you're going to guess. Give me a buzz noise or a buzzer noise, and tell me who you think it's going to be. Kirk's trying to make things a little bit too obvious by picking someone that always have a relation between Bournemouth and the club we're playing against, and I've done exactly the same thing. So don't worry too much about that. So you've already got some players in your mind. But first clue is he was born 12th of February 1993.
Henig.
Oh, Steve, you did have to go early, didn't you?
I was.
That's my wife always says that to me.
I was waiting for Neil Masters, but
basically he was the only one I could think of on the spot.
I think Andrew Sermon was the first one that I.
Oh Christ! Yeah.
That was who I was going to go with first, but I thought that would be too obvious and went with Henig. But it turns out that was the obvious one. Oh,
this has gone really well, hasn't it? As a feature so far.
Oh dear. Well done for that, Steve.
We're just too knowledgeable.
Yeah, exactly. We've all got to know exactly what we're talking about all the time, don't we, Steve? Every single time. Right. Okay. So I suppose we better get into it a little bit more. Aaron, you were fortunate enough to not be at the Liverpool game. Steve and I were stood next to each other, counting down the minutes before we
counting up the goals.
We were counting down the minutes before we could leave Liverpool. How do you feel about the result, first and foremost? How do you feel about the way that Scott Parker set us up? I mean, I think the thing that I put in my reaction video afterwards was not so much necessarily the heavy loss, which is obviously very disappointing, but I do feel as though Parker kind of just set us out to just get battered in that game. I mentioned that I really feel we set up basically 4-4-2. You look at the player positions afterwards, Christie was quite up high with Moore, and going to Anfield, and Anfield you know are going to be hurting after their Man United loss, where they're going to want to make a point. Not playing in the 5-4-1 we've trained in all pre-season, not playing in the 4-3-3 that we played in all last season, and going in a 4-4-2, you can lose to Liverpool. We all expected to lose to Liverpool, but not with the whimper that we did there. And the way that Parker set us out, I feel he was probably trying to make a point to the owners, and in the end, he played it too harshly, and it backfired on him.
Yeah, it was horrible. You know, I didn't make the long journey like you did. I only just got back from holiday, but we were crowded around my TV screen, and it wasn't pretty. I think, you know, a lot's been said about the 5 and the 4 and this and that. This probably was a game where we probably should have started with 5. I think Kelly's injury probably changed his mindset. Certainly must have played a part in it, without a doubt. Because then, you know, do you throw in James Hill, Owen Bevan, or push Lerma back there? But I thought he probably felt that he needed Lerma in midfield. But you're right. I think it probably was trying to set up as a 4-2-3-1, but it very positionally wise was very much Cook and Lerma in there as a 2. And as I've said countless times, it doesn't matter who you're playing in the Premier League. Most teams play a 3 in midfield. Most teams do, and to play 2 is suicide. Eddie found that a couple of times as well. Actually, you know, you've got to play 3 in midfield in the Premier League. You're going to get overrun. It was pathetic, and you know, Liverpool are a brilliant team. They can tear anyone apart, but yeah, it was the manner of it. I actually said when he brought Bevan on and took Mepham off, for me there was no other reason for that substitution than to say to the board, I'm bringing on youth players, I need help. I think that was it. There was no other logical explanation for him bringing Bevan on at that stage. Number 1 over James Hill, and number 2 because Mepham, even if he wasn't having a great game, why would you take Mepham off one of your defenders? So for me, that was purely that was a time when I suddenly thought he's now making a proper statement to the board saying, I'm bringing Owen Bevan on here, I need help. So I mean, yeah, purely talking about the game, it was horrible. I was, you know, it was ridiculous. We celebrated the final whistle because they hadn't broken the record. I was like, you know, literally the final whistle went and we were like, thank God for that, because it wasn't 10, and that would have been humiliating. It was humiliating enough. To go to 10 would have been, well, his history in the making. So yeah. I mean, it was a horrible day all round at that stage, and I wasn't you know thinking about the ramifications and obviously what's happened today and everything. But I just, you know, wanted to get out of the way, and I think the only other thing at that stage was I said, you know, we're 4 games in with our fixture list and we're out the bottom 3, and that I'd have taken that as a, you know, massively as a result. 3 points on the board, out the side the bottom 3. Just results aren't going particularly well for us tonight. But yeah. But that was it, and it was horrible. Obviously, I didn't have a long journey home, but it was I woke up thoroughly depressed the following morning.
Yeah, I too spent most of Sunday curled up in the fetal position in a dark room in my bedroom. So yes, and I didn't have as long journey back as a lot of people, including you, Steve. God, it's difficult to sort of go too much into this because I don't think we really want to dwell on it all that much. But you know, now there has been a significant aftermath to that game, and I mean, Steve, what do you think? I mean, how would you handle? Obviously, Parker's no longer there, but how would you handle picking the players back up after a game like that? I mean, we know how difficult it can be against the top teams, and like I said before, we weren't expecting miracles by any means. But it's difficult enough to come off the back of three losses, let alone when you've scored 0 goals and conceded 16. It's the rest of the season really is, I suppose it's best to just try and forget as much as you can about those last few games.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they hadn't already written those games off. I think what a lot of managers do these days is they look at the fixture list and they look at what games they think they can pick up points from. So I think they would have probably had Liverpool way down as a 0 pointer anyway, along with probably Man City away, and maybe you had a point down for Arsenal at home, possibly. But the long and short of it is, I think they were probably going to get, they were probably expecting to get beat. The manner in which they got beat, which I think Aaron's covered quite well there. I think it was a little bit of a shout to the board and a little bit of Scott setting them up to fail as a desperation tactic to try and get a reaction from the board and get some pennies thrown his way. The way to counter that now is it's a difficult job for Gary O'Neill, but he's worked with these players. He knows these players. He knows what ticks their boxes, floats their boat, and what gets them play and what doesn't. He's got to tap into his skill set now and really sort of try and galvanise as best he can that group of players and say, look, you can compete at this level. You've already shown it at Villa. There's Premier League experience like we didn't have before in that squad. They know how to compete at this level, and just say, look, guys, put an arm around their shoulder and say, come on, guys, just go out there and play. It can't get any worse, can it? So just go and express yourself. He knows he's not going to be in this position for much longer. It's going to be a short-term fix just until we find somebody else. And I mean, that's what I would do. I just go and tell them to, pick a style of play, pick something they're used to doing, and go out there and express themselves and give it a good game. Give Wolves a good game. I think that's all the fans want to see. They want to see a reaction on the pitch, especially the fans that travelled up there like you and I, John. It was like you say, it was a humiliating, humbling experience. And you say about that long journey back, that was humiliating. Every time we stopped in a service station, someone saw you with a Bournemouth top on. It was, it was that, how everyone was sort of like, didn't know what to say to us. It was like, but I don't know. I think that's all the guys that are coming in. I mean, Dave spoke about having a legend on the bench. We've got, there's 2 there in my opinion, and 3 if you count Biggin. So there's people that know. I'm not sure what's the state of play with Biggin, but I'm hoping he's still in his position. I'm sure he is, but those are the guys now that need to rally around this team, that and use their man management skills and pick this bunch off the floor. That's all we can do.
Yeah, easy for you to say. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like for you, but just when we were walking back for me to get my bag from your car, someone was coming out of the driveway. And sort of like I signaled them to move on. The kid in the back seat, who would have been, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, is there just doing that out of the window as they zoom off. It's just like, I can't. What do you do to that? And it's like, especially when you want to put the bird at him, but just give him a thumbs up and just like, yeah, well done, thanks, cheers.
I mean, so many people. The guy we parked on his driveway. He was a lovely chap, Scouser, Liverpool fan. But we didn't want to talk about it. We just didn't. We just wanted to get in our car and go home. Yeah, he proceeded to, talk to us for 15 minutes about, we got to keep our heads up and all this sort of stuff. And he's right. But, in the heat of the moment, you just want to get home and, forget about it, move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what we should do with this conversation.
Yeah, no, believe me, we'll try and not bring up that match again. However, we are going to have to move on to Scott Parker a little bit more. Now, I know, Steve, your thoughts on Scott Parker from even before he came in. But Aaron, at the end of the day, he did get us promoted. It's as much as we might, have our thoughts about the style of play that certainly Fulham fans warned us about, and, obviously what he's done at the start of this season, even if it was through necessity, he brought through and gave a lot of minutes to a lot of youth team players within from the Bournemouth academy. Like, you know, he kind of had to, but he still did that without sort of massively bringing numbers before giving chances to Zamora, Anthony, Ibsen, Rossi, Kilkenny. And even though we had some bumps in the road, he did get us promoted. He completed the objective. So, you know, do you still see Parker's time at Bournemouth a success, given that he's left four games into a Premier League season?
On the face of it, yes. I mean, it's a really weird one, and we, you know, the news broke this morning. Had my youngest son running into my room, waking me up, telling me the news. Thought he was winding me up, but I've been literally toing and froing all day long. On the balance, I think it's the right decision, given everything we've spoken about. But, you know, I've had, living up here, I've got, you know, a lot of friends who clearly don't support Bournemouth, messaging me, you know, from to the outside world. As we know, we've all seen the media pundits, the Linekers of this world, who clearly don't know the ins and outs, and you know, popping their head above the parapet. You know, Rio Ferdinand, loads of pundits and loads of my friends, I'm sure you might have the same, you know, all saying, what the hell's going on? You know, you just got you promoted. Please don't be like Watford. You know, you got you promoted at the first attempt. You know, we did have a very good squad last year. A lot's been said about the ridiculous squad, but I think you could ask a lot of teams who got relegated over the last few seasons. They all think they've had good squads and never made it back up, you know, either within the first few years or at all. Some of them are still languishing or gone even further down. So the Championship is an unforgiving division. However good squad you've got, it's 46 massive battles, and it's very, very difficult. So he did fulfill the remit, whatever you think of the style of play at certain times. And then obviously won our first game of the season. And then we had 3 ridiculously difficult fixtures. It's obviously not going to go into the performances and the scores, but, you know, 3 points from 4 games. So on the face of it, to the outside world, it looks crazy. It looks rash. It looks harsh. And it's always sad to see a football manager go. So I generally do wish him well. But it's self-inflicted. Clearly there was a breakdown at some. Look, we were after him, right? I didn't see that.
Sorry, Scott Parker decided to join us again.
We rightly or wrongly, and some people were never fans of him, and that's completely fair enough. He was sought after for some time by our powers that be once Eddie had left, and it was a long-term project. Apparently, I believe we were ahead of schedule in that project. And discussions must have taken place somewhere along the line. That misalignment that Max Deming's statement mentioned, and that has become all too obvious over the last few days with some of the interviews, etc., even in pre-season, that there was a mismatch and something went wrong with the expectations, with the promises, or whatever should have been delivered. And he went too far. He went too far with publicly. Asking for more players is one thing, and saying we need more players to help. You know, that wasn't the killer for me. The killer is, you know, bringing down your own set of players, telling them they're not good enough, or publicly saying that, you know, they need help. He might say it was twisted slightly, or he wasn't exactly referring to that. If he wasn't, then he was a bit naive in what he was saying. But you know, the fact that the players he's brought in were good to get us out of the Championship, not necessarily for the Premier League. So it clearly became an unsustainable situation. But I am sad about it. I'm sad about it because I don't like change. You know, we were blessed over the years of Bournemouth. Many, you know, apart from a couple like the Groves and Jimmy Quinns, we've had longevity with our managers, Machin, O'Driscoll, obviously Harry, you know, and obviously Eddie. And we're not used to change. When Eddie left, it was like people were in mourning, you know, for you know, clearly for reasons I can understand. Yeah, exactly. And that goes to my point. I think, I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I'm speaking for the whole of the Bournemouth supporter base. I am personally still not over Eddie Howe, and I don't think I ever will be. And that for me is a big problem. It's a big problem for me because he was a unique legend of our football club, the likes we'll probably never see again. And the fact that we'll never see that again is quite a depressing thought. And it's an issue because we're going to compare everyone to that. It was not Scott Parker's fault that he was not a legend of the football club. it wasn't his fault. And realistically, whoever's next going to come in isn't going to be a legend of the football club. That's not their fault. You know, they're entitled to take a football.
He could have become one.
He could have become one, yeah, but he never had that attachment, and no one will have that attachment that Eddie Howe had. And you know, I also don't think necessarily that most other managers would have kept us in the Premier League for 5 years. And I think we sometimes we get a bit blinded by that because of the incredible uniqueness and togetherness, which is very important, obviously, that Eddie brought to the football club. So it was always going to be difficult for Scott. He never had the same rapport with the fans. That wasn't that sometimes his fault. I get that. And that's the nature of his personality potentially. But, you know, it wasn't, I thought it might have been the right fit. It clearly wasn't towards the end. But for me, is where we go from here. The timing, as I said, there's never any right timing, but the timing, obviously, with 2 days before the window.
Yeah, that's the big issue, isn't it?
And a big week ahead, not just a big week, but a big set of football matches ahead. You know, I say winnable games. What I mean is the next 5 or 6, I don't think are any against the big 6, for example. So that they're potentially winnable. And who do we get in? Because, you know, it's time will tell, but I guess we'll never now know what would have happened had Scott Parker stayed, kept his mouth shut a bit and got on with the job. We'll never know. So we can't ever compare that. Fans might think we can bring in certain managers. I think they might be deluded on that front. We've clearly got zero money to spend. We've now got to pay off Scott and all of his team. So I'm not saying, again, I'm not for 1 minute saying it was the wrong decision. I think on the balance, as I said at the beginning, it was the right decision, but it could go horribly wrong now. It could be an utter mess. And I hope to God it's not. And I hope we get a great progressive young manager in who can obviously bring us forward and lift the players and take us forward. But I do seriously worry. Having said that, look, we're in the Premier League, and I keep pinching myself. We're in the Premier League. You know, if Parker had failed last season and we're stuck in the Championship now, and we're in the Championship. Hi, Kirk.
It's Kurt.
I just thought I'd pop in just to thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Kirk.
How's everything going?
Now go away. We're doing fine.
I'll go away. I just want to thank the team. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't realise I was going to come straight into the stream, but thank you to the team. Give John, Steve and Aaron a massive like for this video and match preview. There is a video out for Scott Parker. And just thank you to everyone and thanks to the team. And I'll watch this back, I promise you. But I hope you had a good show, guys.
How is everything?
Okay. Everything's okay. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what quite to say, but
all right, leave it there.
Leave it there.
We'll
no problem.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll give a score prediction though. I'll bring it in at 2-1 to Bournemouth. Sean Cooper, Tommy Elphick will lift the lads up.
I thought they were going to score. I thought Cooper and Elphick were going to score the goals for a minute.
Well, there we go. Free flowing football, and let's get a 2-1 win tomorrow, and let's put some positivity back into Dean Court. But yeah, thanks for the show, guys. Hope everyone has enjoyed it, and you can take me out the show, John. I didn't realise I was going to come straight in.
Rid of him.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea. I was panicking, wondering who the hell was coming into the show without me doing anything. But all right. Thanks.
His ideas are different to ours. Let's get rid of him like Parker.
Let's do it.
We'll speak to you later, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, I've rambled on for about 6-7 minutes now, so I think you get the gauge of what I'm saying. I've gone kind of from all over the shop, but yeah, I mean, it's where we go from here, who we get in. I'm very open to anybody right now. I just, as I said, we're in the Premier League. I still pinch myself. We could have been in the Championship. If it failed last year, we could be sinking towards it. But we're in the Premier League, so let's have a bit of positivity here. The worst case scenario of the season was back in the Championship with probably a relatively good financial situation, but the way things are going. So it's not all doom and gloom, but I do worry now for the next few weeks in the season, because we don't want to suddenly be the whipping boys totally.
Right. I did have possibly some other questions, but I think we'll move straight on to possible replacements. I mean, I'll put down a banner on the bottom with some names that so far we've been linked with. There's obviously Sean Dyche. I think Chris Wilder's a decent shout, but I don't think he'll go anywhere. There's Woodgate, Terry, Carrick, O'Neill sticking around, Mark Robbins from Coventry, Slaven Bilic I've seen. Kjetil Knudsen is from Bodo Glimt, who's a name I think quite a few fans are interested in. And there's about 50 more, other than ones down at the bottom already, as per usual. Steve, what do you think about possible replacement names? Do you see Gary O'Neill getting maybe a few weeks to see if he might want it, or maybe bring Cooper and Elphick into the main lineup, or do you think someone from the outside needs to? We need a more experienced name to sort of try and give us the best chance of staying up rather than writing off the season already.
I don't necessarily think we need a big name or a big manager, and I don't think we can attract one personally. I just don't see how any manager who's got any sort of credence at the moment is going to come into a job where he's got no money, and it's pretty much, we're the bookies' favourites to go down. And go down at in 20th place. So I cannot see the likes of Dyche, Wilder. Wilder's in a job at the minute. Dyche hasn't got one, but there's been talk of him hanging around to see what happens at Everton. Some of those other clubs, Leicester, for example, that might be looking for a manager in a couple of months. I think Wayne Rooney's just recently taken a position in America, hasn't he? So I can't see that. Yeah, I can't see that one happening personally. I'd be more inclined, if we're going to go for someone from the lower leagues who's young, not necessarily young, but hungry manager. He's doing sort of well. I do quite like the Mark Robbins one. I think he's done a great job at Coventry. The Knutson one, I'd be amazed if we pulled that off, because aren't they in the Champions League?
They're definitely in Europe.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they got to the Champions League. I think they might.
Did they get knocked out in the qualifiers?
They're either. I'm pretty sure they're either Europa League or Conference League, but they're definitely still
again. Maybe I don't know how it's Norwegian, isn't it? I don't know how they view the Premier League, whether it's the Holy Grail of football management.
I think it would be a big step up.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it would be, but he's currently doing very well with the club he's got, and why would he come if he's going to come to a job in the Premier League? Why would he come to one that's sort of seems doomed to fail?
I mean, just look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He went from the top of the Norwegian League to Man United. So.
Well, yeah, but are we getting put into the same category as Man United now? Are we?
No. Although I'm pretty sure you'll find. I'm pretty sure you'll find odds on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer taking the Bournemouth job somewhere. I'm pretty sure you'll find that. But
I'm not a big advocate of these ex-players that have, sort of for some unknown reason, people think will be automatically a good manager, like the likes of I'm just looking at there, Thierry Henry, John Terry. I noticed there earlier. They haven't really cut their cloth anywhere yet. I'm not saying it's beyond the realms of possibility for them to succeed, but general rule of thumb is they don't necessarily work out that well. I think there's a case to say that the three guys that have gone in there could do a reasonable job with what they've got, because the players know them. They've worked with them already. If anyone's good at getting motivational with players, and a lot of those young players know him, is Sean Cooper. He's done an absolutely stellar job with what players he's had at the under-23s. Just look at the ones that have come through and either broke into the first team or have gone on to pass as new. It's not the worst idea in the world, and bear in mind we've got a break coming up. It's almost like for the World Cup, that is. If we could hang in there and be in touching distance, do we then become a bit more of a pull to a manager who thinks, well, actually, I probably could save these. They've got a bit of confidence about them, could do a job and keep them up. Don't know. It's a tricky one. And like Aaron said, it is key to what we do next. It could go horribly wrong, but I just think I've got a funny feeling they might surprise people, those three.
I would love to see them absolutely surprise people. I think Gary O'Neill obviously being picked as the head of the group, and then with Cooper and Elphick coming in as assistants. I think those two have done fantastically with the under-23s. Alan Connell has also done an absolutely fantastic job with the under-18s, and they've started their season brilliantly, keeping an eye on their results coming through on the AFCB Academy Twitter feed. So we've definitely got some good coaches coming through, and I think I can't remember. I think it was when it was either Eddie or JT when they went was sat before. I was thinking that Stephen Purchase, because of his work with the under-23s would have been a really good one, but obviously he went and moved on with he moved on. Obviously,
who Sean Cooper worked with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I do think
that I wonder if Steve would purchase. You know, he's not. Would he want to be a manager in his own right and come back to Bournemouth? I wouldn't rule it out.
No, I think that wouldn't be a terrible shout at all. I think when you look at, we got Eddie, as a freak result of him, going into coaching with the youth team and cutting his chops with the younger players. And obviously, him being so great as a coach came from necessity because of a transfer embargo. But what are you going to say, Steve?
Can I just switch that question onto you two and say, who would you, out of that list, or is there anyone you specifically have thought of?
I mean, for me, I'm now wishing I hadn't been cheering Newcastle on. They'd had a dreadful start to the season. Eddie had lost his job, and then it's a natural fit for him to come home, which could still happen. They could lose every game between now and November, and Newcastle lose a patient there. In all seriousness, I don't know. Half of me would love the Cooper at Elphick, the boot boys, so to speak, come through. But I just
the romance of it.
Yeah, but I just don't know. I mean, obviously we haven't mentioned Sean Dyche. What's interesting about Dyche is my first thought was I can't bear his football, but then I watched an interview with him. I don't know if you've seen it. It was on Twitter today, quite interestingly, and he was saying that he played that style because that's the players he had at Burnley. He's very open to different styles of football. That's not him, and he's desperately trying to kind of get himself away from that. Now, I mean, he's experienced, obviously kept Burnley up for many years, and clearly he's a motivator, an organizer, and someone that they'd respect. So he could go down that route. He's free. He's obviously not got a job. I don't know if I don't know what before we were mentioning the likes of Wagner and people like him. I don't know what they're up to. It's I just don't know, is the honest answer, and I'm pleased I'm not the one making the decision, because there's so many different routes you can go down, and within reason, and it's such a massive decision now. It's such a massive decision because you want to try and be competitive. You want to try and stay in the Premier League if at all you can. But yeah, there's no one that really sticks out as thinking that's the obvious contender.
Yeah, for me, I think Knutson from Glimt would be a wonderful pickup. Although I say that whilst also being the kind of person that would also sort of inherently would like to see more English managers in the Premier League, and one of the first names that pops out to me is Norwegian rather than all the Englishmen that are in that. I think
it's because how they've massively they've kind of overachieved a bit like we did back in the day.
Exactly. It's a smaller club that's overachieving with a manager that clearly is getting the best out of the players. It just rings so many bells to Bournemouth fans in particular. But I do think someone from the champion, someone that's doing a decent job in the Championship, I'd be happy for. Just anyone that's going to play, that's going to go at it. I think most Bournemouth fans would say that, look, if you came in and we got back to the kind of the only way we're going to win is if we score more than you type of play that Eddie Howe essentially did, I think we'd be fine even if we went down, because it would be an entertaining season. We'd go into games with hope. We'd have some sort of encouragement, and the team would feed off the fans, and the fans would feed off the team, which just for long periods of last season didn't happen under Parker. And certainly, whilst I understand and sort of pragmatism, I actually I am not against in Parker setting up in a back five to start this season. It just doesn't look like it suits the team. So if we were to bring someone in that actually goes at, really goes for it and tries to take the division on, even if we went down, I wouldn't be too disappointed.
I mean, they might as well.
If we went in the right way. Exactly. So moving on from that, I suppose we've been talking for a good hour, so we better close this up with some predictions. So everyone that's joined us, thank you very much for joining us on this show live. Please do drop us a like, and if you didn't catch it live, please watch it back and leave us a comment and let us know who you think you would like as Bournemouth manager if you were the board and had to pick. It's a tough one, but I've given you some ideas still along the bottom of the screen. As for score predictions, there's a few that's gone in there already. Please get them down and I'll show them up on the screen. But Aaron, what do you think will be the score coming into the Wolves game? Do we have any chance? Of course we do. What do you think? What do you think of the score will be?
Yeah, of course we do. We're under the lights. I've got a 100% record this season, so I'm back. So Look, we do. I spoke before. Wolves are a dangerous team. They've got some very dangerous players. I'd like to think that it all ends well tomorrow, and that we maybe try and get a point. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think that'd be a good result given the circumstances.
1-1 draw. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't be too disappointed with that, to be honest. Stop the rot, as it were. Steve, what do you think?
Unfortunately, after witnessing the 9-0 in the flesh, I can't see where a goal's coming from at the current time. But, however, that was under Scott Parker. We are now going to be under the tutelage of Gary O'Neill. Whether much will change, I don't know. But it could be a breath of fresh air that the players need, and we could see a reaction. I fingers crossed for that. And like I said earlier, I'd snap your hand off for that 1-1 that Aaron's just suggested. However, I think we're going to see a better performance. I do, however, think we will lose. But I think narrowly, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Wolves.
2-1 to Wolves. Oh, dearie me. Well, I think we've got, obviously, Wolves fans agreeing with you here. Got Amanda trying to be positive with a 2-1. Sammy hasn't gone with 3-1 this time.
That's why it's all gone to shit this season. She's lost the 3-1s.
It's 2-1 to 2-1 from Cameron. Got 1-1 from AFCB Germany. 1-1 from Mark Singleton. Oh no, Sammy went with a 2-1. Okay, she's being positive. So maybe not positive enough to stick with the 3-1s, but certainly being positive. And we've got a 2-1 from Stephen. I want to try and be positive as well. I think, Wolves are a side that we can definitely get at, as much as difficult as it will be. And it'll be interesting to see what formation we've got. And we obviously haven't done a prediction for the formation this time around. There's obviously too much we don't know. So I'm hoping we go back to the 4-3-3 and just play our game from last season and see what happens. And
I think that would make sense, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see us getting at least a point out of this. I'll be positive and say 1-1. I think I'll agree there with Aaron. I think just any point from this game is going to be just going to be something that can sort of wash away the troubles of the last few weeks and just try and get back onto some sort of solid footing. But I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, as long as we see a much improved performance, that's half the battle really at this stage. Yeah.
I mean, Dom should be fit, hopefully, to start. I don't know about, obviously, there's no press conference, so we don't know if Lloyd Kelly's fit. Pearson obviously went off with a knock, so I'm hoping that Lloyd Kelly's at least fit, and obviously Dom's firing, and that'll make hopefully a bit of a difference.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Certainly having the best team that we can available will always help. So Dom Solanke being very much part of that. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see. I will be watching from home on Wednesday. I can't make the 5-hour journey down and back up again to get time for work. So
come on, John, it won't be 9-0. Come on.
But I do hope you, Aaron, and Steve, and the rest that go to the game have a good time, and it isn't quite the same as. What was that game? I've completely forgotten about it already. Never mind. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do give us a like. It really does help. Thank you so much for the comments on the most recent videos and the likes and views. Every single one of those really does help just to spread the word about the channel. And yes, I suppose thank you very much for watching this show. And I'll say goodbye to chat and to Aaron and Steve. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today. And yeah. I'll see you next time.
No problem, mate. Good to see you.
Pleasure as always. See you
Great
soon.
stuff. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you on the next video. Up the cherries.
Up the cherries.
You Reds.